What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Coach T-Mac. In today's video, we sit down with former defensive captain of the San Francisco 49ers, Ian Williams. Ian gives us an inside look into the NFL and the path of an undrafted free agent. If you ever want to catch these interviews live, I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evening, and sometimes on Sunday. But make sure to like and subscribe to the channel to catch all my interview uploads. Now, let me see that intro. Parts like the Red Sea, nobody touches them.
No, it's like when you hear that you made the 105, it's like Christmas morning.
But if the ball comes in the B gap, I gotta make that play.
Right? So not everybody starts at ground zero equally.
Ian, what's up, man? How you doing?
T, what's good, man? I'm doing good, man. Just enjoying my Friday. Hopefully everybody's staying healthy, staying safe out there so far. But yeah, just trying to enjoy my day, man.
Absolutely. So, little bit of backstory. As y'all can see, there are some Notre Dame connections, and they're pretty obvious. You know, me and Capron went to high school. He goes to Notre Dame. So I fortunately get introduced to a lot of his teammates and get to build some friendships and relationships with those guys. And they've had some experiences at the next level and playing in a different region of major college football and getting to experience, you know, hearing their stories and whatnot. So Ian's got a really cool story and just wanted to be able to sit down and talk with him, let him tell his journey and what he's done from Notre Dame to the NFL and then life after football. So if you can just kind of give us a brief summary of your final time, the end of your career at Notre Dame, and then transitioning into the NFL.
What was my senior, man? You make me feel old. Now you're taking it back, ain't you? All right, my senior year was 2010. I ended up getting injured, tore my MCL against Navy. My senior year ended up going undrafted, but you know what? Still had a lot of good film out there, so I was one of the top undrafted free agents. So once the lockout ended that year, I was signed with the Niners right away. They fit the scheme that I felt highlighted my attributes the most. I can play the best in 3-4 scheme. And it kind of just set me up for being able to come into a situation and learn from a lot of older vets that were there, Justin Smith, Patrick Willis, some of the guys, the name I got to learn from all these guys. So it was just a great decision to be able to go to Notre Dame 4 years, get a degree, and then go and step into a professional setting and have, you know, all pro and all franchise players, you know, just around me in the meeting rooms and locker room. I think it was a great decision. It was a blessing in disguise to be able to go from Indy to San Francisco.
And I think a lot of people forget about the lockout because, you know, it didn't necessarily impact the season as much as like when you see an NBA lockout and things like that. But for you, how did it affect, you know, your preparation and that whole undrafted free agent process?
It was tough. I mean, obviously to go undrafted when you're especially thinking that you are going to go drafted, I felt like I had a pretty good senior year up until my injury. Maybe, you know, the teams didn't, you know, feel that my knee was good enough to be able to withstand a career, a long-term career, which is why I probably slid and I went undrafted. But I think the situation kind of worked out. You know, I was able to go to a situation that worked out in my favor. Maybe if I get drafted and I go into a team that required me to play right away, maybe I struggle instead of, you know, being able to sit and watch for a couple of years and then it'd be my time, and it gave me time to learn the game and kind of come into my own. But I feel like that whole lockout year, those couple months, those few months that, you know, there's kind of, you know, really a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen. Are they going to open up the facilities for the guys to go back to start training, OTAs? Is training camp going to be missed? You know, there's kind of a lot of unknowns. It's very similar to right now. So it was just, it was very difficult, but just, I was just excited once the lockout ended. I was able to go back with my teammates, start working out, start training. That was the year we went to the NFC Championship, and we should have won it. But yeah, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure. But segueing straight into that, I mean, that first year, like you said, NFC Championship, and then you followed up the next year by making it to the Super Bowl. So I mean, there's a lot of guys that have 8, 10, 12-year careers that never get that opportunity. Here you are. Obviously, it cements the fact that you made a great decision in going to San Francisco, you know, not only from a scheme, but obviously from a team standpoint. You're fitting in, you're having a lot of production. So that transition from year one to year two, how did expectations, you know, personally, professionally, schematically, how did they change for you, you know, as that year two started? And obviously the defense is strong, but what was the change in expectations for your role?
Well, now like year one is kind of like a learning, get your feet wet, introduction to the professional game, and then that second year, that team is expecting some output of production from you. You know, you just can't just sit there and just be watching. Like eventually, you have to have some kind of production. In that second year, you know, I felt like I was ready. I still had a lot of guys in front of me. I had the two guys that were in front of me the year before. They were veteran guys, helped the team get to the NFC Championship. So I sat behind them again, Isaac Sokowaga and Ricky Jean Francois, and I was able to learn even more football, practice and watch film with them. And that was the year we went to the Super Bowl, and that was the year we were really good because of those guys that did their job. And I just saw from a early portion of my career, I was able to be around guys that took the game serious, and then didn't take any days off. You know, just guys that just wanted to show up every day and have fun, and obviously, you know, get to work and win football games.
And that leads to a little tangent I want to kind of jump on. I know we didn't really discuss this earlier, but when you talking about that professional aspect, I think that's, you know, I think that's something that gets mentioned every once in a while, but the general population can definitely overlook that. We talked about the value of when that locker room, the core of a team, you know, how that can set a tone for a season when your leadership approaches the game that way.
I mean, any time that you're trying to obviously go in the right direction, you're going to need some kind of leadership, because if your leaders are leading you in the opposite or the wrong direction, your team or your whatever your company business is going to follow in that direction. So obviously they have some very good leaders that their voices are strong. And you know, guys will follow no matter what. You need some of those guys on that team. We had that. We had Patrick Willis. We had Frank Gore, Joe Staley. We had a whole bunch of guys during those Harbaugh years that, you know, you can kind of be a young guy and just see the whole roster as veterans and guys that you want to learn from. You know, I can name literally every guy on the roster from those years that I looked up to, and I kind of took a little bit of their game and kind of instilled it in mine, and not only just their game on the field, but just their habits in the practice room or on the practice field, their habits in the meeting room, their habits outside of the locker room, their habits during training, you know, during OTAs, their habits during the off season, and what they're doing, what they're not doing. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of pick the minds, and obviously you just watch these guys. So it was just a fun experience to be around so many great players, and then also be able to win a lot of football games. And obviously still, you know, to this day, this is what, 2020, and it's what, 7-8 years, and we're still talking about us going to the Super Bowl, even though we lost. You know, it's still a big thing because it's the Super Bowl. You know, it's only one a year, and obviously it's a big event. So that speaks volumes of how important that event was for not only my life, but a lot of those guys that I played with.
For sure, for sure. And, you know, again, jumping into kind of the next two season window. So year 1 and 2, you know, you got that learning year, that rookie year, then expectations, like you said, franchise wants to start to see a return on their investment. And now we get into 13 and 14. And these 2 years, I think they prove pivotal because of what happens in 15. But at what point do you think that guys stop being the young guy, right? Like, we know the shelf life of NFL players is pretty short, right? But what do you think the turning point is? Is it a production thing, or is it a years in thing where you stop being looked at as like the new guy, the young guy, et cetera, et cetera?
I think you hit it on the head with the production. Like, once you start to see production from a guy, now you can kind of start to picture, giving this guy more opportunities, like a wide receiver. All right, so he made a big play on third down. I know if I throw him the ball, if I give him an opportunity on third down in a big game, big situation, he's done this for me before. I can trust him to do this again. You know what I'm saying? So you're kind of, you're building that rapport with your team, obviously by doing, good things, like making a good block or making the right read or catching the ball or making a crucial tackle. So a lot of these things go into the production value of a player. And then, if the team obviously isn't feeling like you're producing enough, then, your shelf life becomes shorter, or, they start to look elsewhere for some production because you can only be there for so long and not, actually produce. They're paying you very, very good money. So you have to have some kind of they have to have some kind of return on their investment.
For sure. And I think we can both agree that, you definitely felt like 13 and 14 was that for you, right? We start to see the production and the accountability that the franchise looked to you towards. And that kind of led into the next thing I want to talk about. But we do have a question. Heath, he's one of our international American football coaches, but he just won, from college to the NFL, having predominantly offensive minded head coaches, and them being relatively hands-on personalities. How did they approach being there for the defensive players and not showing bias to one side of the ball? Or did they show bias to one side of the ball?
Yeah, it's always hard. Back at Notre Dame, we had Brian Kelly my senior year. We had Charlie Weiss my first 3 years. So, Charlie coming from New England, he had Tom Brady. So he's an offensive of mind. And then all of a sudden, when we get to Notre Dame, we have Jimmy Clausen, Golden Tate, a whole bunch of guys on offense that kind of put up points. And there's a fine line between, your offense doing well and your defense doing well. Because if your defense does too well in training camp and practices, that means your offense isn't doing well. They're struggling. Vice versa, if your offense is doing very well, that means your defense is struggling. So, you're going to a season now. All right, well, my defense may, be a little bit worse, or my offense be a little bit better. So you kind of pick and choose your moments to get aggressive or not get aggressive. So it's just a lot that goes into understanding the different variables of kind of running an offense, calling, what you see fit, what you see is going to hit, what you think is going to work.
For sure, for sure. So now jumping back into time with the Niners, we get to 2015, obviously 13, 14, the production is there, you've proven your worth. There was a little bump in the road, but there was also some expected payoff and things were looking a little bit more long-term in San Francisco. Kind of walk us through that process, because I think it's going to give guys a kind of a peek behind the curtain, the things that the general population doesn't get to hear about. Right. So kind of walk everybody through that into 14, into 15 conversation.
2014 going into 15, that was my last year of my deal. So I was obviously looking forward to signing a long-term deal. I was excited to be a part of my organization, the Niners, for another 5 years. I felt like we had something special, and eventually we we're going to get back to what the team did this past year. It's going to take a couple of years to get there, but I felt like we had the vision and we had the players to build around and be able to get there. But going into 15, I played very well. Finally had a whole season under my belt, played 16 games, played very well. But unfortunately, when I broke my ankle back in 2013, I had got an infection in my ankle from one of the surgeries, a staph infection. So that ended up reoccurring after the season in 15. And I had to have emergency surgery to obviously fix, recorrect, and eradicate everything that was going on in my ankle with the infection, with the staph infection. So all that happened, and then the multiple surgeries, and I had a fixator on my ankle. So all that happened in the rehab. It was just more of, what do you want your quality of life to be? You could try to go back and play, which I did. I tried to rehab and work out and get back, but it was too much for my ankle. And after a while, I was just contemplating, the risk and reward. I decided to call it a career. Obviously, it was the worst time because I was finally starting to play well, and starting to slow down. I was starting to have a lot of success with the game. So it sucked to obviously, retire at that moment. But looking back, it gave me a chance to dive into my second career a lot earlier than a lot of other guys. Um, Maybe they're 35, 40 when they're diving into their second careers. I was 20, 28, 29 when I started working for NBC. So this gave me a chance to start earlier than other guys. So I kind of try to look at the glass uh, half full than it being half empty.
For sure. And I think that, it's not something that is the norm, right? The infections that come from these type of surgeries, it's not something that happens all the time, but the light is being shed on these situations more and more. The Alex Smith documentary, these conversations are being had, and these are the type of things that make, especially contact sports, these decisions when you start talking about contracts and long term and guaranteed money and things of that nature. These are the reason that those conversations start to become really serious, is because you're risking your life, and
exactly
the continuation of fighting through that. They showed Alex Smith is he's got a goal of he thinks he can get back out there, and it's guys are in that mindset of like you said, of can they let it go? Can they hang it up and be able to compare, on the field, off the field, quality of life type conversations? But, we had a teammate when I was in Waco, his was more similar to Alex Smith's, double compound fracture on his leg, staph infection, 4 or 5 surgeries. And then he ended up having to medically retire after playing and starting, half the season as a true freshman. So these are the type of things that I think, again, a lot of the general population isn't as savvy to, they're not as aware of, and they don't, they just see, the contract dollars of like, oh, why would they turn that down? Well, the average career span of an NFL player is less than 3 years. So that window is so small, you got to try and take care of yourself as long-term as possible. Yep. But you introduced the next conversation, like you said, the life after football came earlier than expected, earlier than anticipated for you, and the game always has a special place in our hearts. And the vast majority of us find a way to stay connected in some way. For me, it was coaching, but for you, it was a little bit different. Kind of tell everybody what you're up to now, especially guys that may not be Niners fans or on the West Coast or be as privy to what you're doing with NBC now. Kind of let everybody know what you're up to.
I was given a great opportunity from NBC Sports Bay Area to come in and give analysis, give my insight, my opinions on what's going on with the team. So it's been fun to work with Jeff Garcia, Dante Whitner, Laura Britt, and so many other cast and personalities with NBC Bay Area. Just kind of learn and kind of see from different perspective of how the press looks at us. For the majority of my career, I was the guy on the inside of the locker room. I didn't really look out like that. Now I have the perspective of being outside the locker room looking in. So it's pretty cool just to see that. But it's just been a great opportunity. It's been a fun 2 years, with last year being kind of the setup year for this year, and then obviously with the team doing so well, getting to the Super Bowl, going to Miami, truly was a highlight for the network and for us to be able to obviously give as much content as we could to our fans in the Bay Area and in California. It was a fun ride, and hopefully the team continues their success, and we can be right back in Tampa Bay as we were in Miami last year. But we'll be looking. We'll be doing more content. If everything wasn't going on right now, there'd be off season going on right now. There'll be a lot of content coming out right now, but just have to wait until the season starts back, and just kind of wait until the ball starts running with that, just to see how everything falls in place.
Yeah, a lot of hurry up and wait all over the country right now, especially with sports and whatnot. Well, man, I really appreciate it. I know we played a little bit of a tag, but I'm really glad that we got to get together and talk. I'm still planning on, as soon as we get a chance, getting out there for an OTA minicamp window and linking up and talking ball and kicking it for a little bit. So like I said, man, thanks for hopping on and hanging out with us.
Oh yeah, for sure, bro. Thanks
all right,
for having
man.
me on. Go Irish. Go
That's
Niners.
right. That's right. You got a couple Irish fans in the chat there. He's from Australia, but he's a big Irish fan. So when Cap came on and now he said he loves the indie connection on the channel. So I got to keep playing into it. See if I can get D-Flim on next.
Oh yeah, for sure. KLM 89, baby.
That's right. All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, Trav.
See ya.